Terrence McKenna once said that there are three things that can really shake up your perspective and help you to see things in a completely new way. And those three things are psychedelic drugs, a meditation or an intense and deep spiritual practice, and travel. What I want to talk about today is travel. And I want to talk about how living abroad here in Europe, in Austria, in Vienna, in the 2nd District, how being away from my home country of the United States of America for almost 6 years now has helped me to see America in a completely different light. And in the same way that meditation and Buddhism have helped to break me free of the idea that I have this really fixated, circumscribed self that behaves and acts and is a certain way, travel and living abroad has helped me realize that a society, a whole group of people, the cultural identity of, say, a place like America, the United States, is not a fixed thing. It's a choice. It's a choice that a group of people keep making together over and over and over. Okay, so what I want to do for starters, just kind of for fun, is to point out some of the ways that Austria and the States are different. Because even though these are like two allies with a lot in common, in many ways they're night and day. So before I get started, I'm just gonna pre-apologize. I've noticed sometimes that when I think to myself, gosh, the way Austrians do this thing is very interesting. And then I point it out to an Austrian, they're sometimes like, you're an ignorant moron. And then when I come home to the States and I say, gosh, you guys do this thing weirdly, they're like, you're totally an ignorant moron. So let's begin this segment of the video with the understanding that I'm an ignorant moron on both sides of the Atlantic. Now let's begin. So for starters, they're a bit grumpier here in Austria than in America. I remember about a couple weeks after I first moved here, I was walking down the street and it suddenly occurred to me, did I do something to offend you? Everybody? Like in America, especially the Midwest, where I was born and raised, you give people a friendly head nod. Complete strangers. They're walking by, you do one of these, you do one of those. Hey, how's it going? We're sharing this human condition together. Never happens in Austria. If you give people a quick head nod like that, they scowl a bit. They might think you're mad. The Viennese are not phony. They're not breaking out smiles for every single Johnny-come-lately. And in fact, I've come to learn there is something called the American smile. That's what they call it over here. And the American smile is like this. Love me! That's what the American smile says. Love me! Number 2, Austrians like rules. In my experience. I know that sounds strange if you're an American viewer, but they don't necessarily like to mix it up. I live on a street that is next to Praterstrasse. On Praterstrasse, there is what they call zebras. We don't call them that, we call them crosswalks. So this crosswalk is probably only 3 feet long, okay? It's 3 feet from one side to the other side, because it's not really a street, hard to describe. But anyways, if that little man, crosswalk man, is red, there will be a a flock of people standing there, waiting, refusing to cross the street, even though it's just 3 feet and there's no car within miles. They will sit there until that little crosswalk man turns green, and then they will walk. And as an American, I find an American a rule breaker, a cowboy. Americans are all cowboys, one of the Austrians told me. They're either a John Wayne cowboy or a Dennis Hopper Easy Rider cowboy, but you're all cowboys. And I, the cowboy, find myself sitting there at that zebra like, oh my God, are you kidding me? There's no cars here. You're not gonna walk? Don't you have things to do? Don't you have your individual existences to live? Don't you have things to strive for? Just don't you have peanut butter? You need peanut butter in this country. That's why there's no peanut butter in this country, because you're all sitting here at the crosswalk waiting for non-existent cars to drive by when you could just be crossing the street. Peanut butter. I'm a little obsessed with the peanut butter issue because in America, peanut butter is like, it's like a staple. But here, I have to walk 20 minutes to the Turkish store just to get a basic jar of overpriced peanut butter. Which brings me to a very important point. The number of consumer products available in Vienna is orders of magnitude smaller than in America. America, I'm sorry, we are a consumerist society. Consumerist to the core. It's not just an economic fact, it affects every aspect of our society and culture. There's a very special, very unique, and a very important word here in Austria, which I'm going to now mispronounce for you. Gemutlichkeit. 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 It has no direct translation in the English language. Like the closest word you can find for it is like cozy. It describes like that great the feel of a really great holiday meal where you're surrounded by your loved ones and you feel that invisible sense of connection and warmth. And in my experience, this is a cultural value in Austria. It's not just a nice word for a good mood. It's a cultural value. So in a culture where that is not hyper consumeristic, there's space for this kind of deep relaxation, warmth, a kind of family feel that spreads out into the greater society. So there's this interesting dynamic where even though the Austrians can be proudly grumpy as a people, or at least the Viennese, because I'm told that it's a microclimate of extreme grumpiness within the broader macroclimate of Austrian grumpiness. But even within that, you have this balancing out factor of a kind of warmth, togetherness, and communal spirit that's exemplified by the word Gemutlichkeit. I think the spirit of Gemutlichkeit is deep in Austrian culture. And I think there's almost a kind of Gemütlichkeit politics that informs and shapes this whole society. For example, there's a number of social safety nets here. I mean, there's just right off the bat, free healthcare, free mental health care. There's great public schooling and virtually free college. Like, there ain't nobody here going into debt like they are in America over colleges. So there's a number of social safety nets to catch you if you happen to be falling. Like in America, I feel like the only social safety net is the pavement. the concrete sidewalk where you wind up sleeping because there's been no social safety nets to catch you along the way. So I remember coming from Austria where there's virtually no homeless problem. I mean, it's a fraction of the number of homeless people on the streets of Vienna that I see in Los Angeles. And I remember like walking down the street where I used to live and just seeing these bodies sprawled on the concrete. Being in Los Angeles and seeing that homeless problem, it really made me stop one day and like it really made me think, what does my America, my dear, dear America, like what karmic debt are we building? Where is our heart? Like as a people, as a society, what do we believe in? Who are we? What do we, how do we hold humanity when we can let someone sit in 90-degree sun, mentally ill, off their rocker, baking to death in their own feces while we go around them to Jamba Juice? One thing I've noticed about America is that America is a winner culture. Like America looks to and cares about one group of people, and that is the winners. Get to the top. That's the only place that matters. If there is any country that could solve any problem, in my opinion, it's America, because I love our country. I love it. It's my favorite country on the planet. It really is. And living abroad has made me realize that America's my favorite country on the planet. You may think I'm complaining about it, and I'm one of these guys who's living in Europe and who's saying, y'all are like this, y'all are like that. No, I truly love America. And I believe if there's any country that could solve the problem of homelessness, Americans could do it like that. There's a reason that the problem isn't solved. It's because somehow we've all agreed that there have to be people at the very, very, very bottom. And that's to scare the hell out of all the rest of us, because not all of us are going to make it to the top in this winner culture, in this success culture. So we've got the homeless people lying on the streets to remind us of just how far we can fall. So everybody overworks and works on the weekends and works at home with their bosses texting them when they're trying to put the kids to sleep. Everybody will keep on working because they may not be at the top. They may not be Elon Musk buying Twitter on a whim while sending people to Mars someday, while also possibly putting the internet in our heads through Neuralink. No, we can't all be that, but at least we aren't that guy lying on the street. So a culture and a society, like, it makes choices. Nothing is by accident that happens in a culture, especially not a culture as modern and successful and as thriving as America. These are societies built from choice. Choices you're making, choices I'm making, choices we're all making together. Of all the trips that I like to take, guilt trips are not one of them. So I don't mean to imply that you and I as Americans are choosing to put homeless people on the streets. What I'm really trying to get across is that it's been liberating for me to live in a place where the people are different than they are in America, such that whereas before I thought that, for example, a certain level of ambient ambition always in the air, whereas before I thought that that was just inscribed in the human heart, now I realize not necessarily. We're free from that. We're free to choose that or not. We're free to choose Gemutlichkeit or not. Seeing America through Austrian eyes, seeing Austria through American eyes, I have come to realize that there are just a lot of different ways to be human. It can be so easy to get stuck on like cultural or political differences. But like when you travel, you realize a lot of your set in stone ideas are really provincial. I mean, for example, I came to this continent here in Europe with a lot of ideas about politics. And then I realized that the Viennese have notions of liberalism and conservatism that are different than American notions. And someone can say something here that would be perceived as conservative in America, but is liberal here, and vice versa. It's not necessarily the same thing. And so you start to destabilize your fixated notions about what is and what isn't and who isn't. And you start to just think, oh, heck with it. We're all people. We're all humans. You don't get so stuck on the differences. And that's the important thing, isn't it? Not to get stuck on what makes us different. I had the craziest dream the other night. I was in a graveyard, and there were a bunch of tombstones. And then there was one tombstone that was like rectangular, and it was an American flag. And I went up and I read the epitaph. And I woke up and I wrote the epitaph down. And I didn't know what I was going to use it for, but I guess it was for this video, because here it is. I wrote it down. And here's what it was. There was no vision strong enough to hold humankind together. And so they became obsessed with their differences. Yeah, and according to Mr. Terrence McKenna, psychedelic drugs, a strong meditation or spiritual practice, and travel are three things that can help us have a vision of oneness that is stronger than our differences, so our country doesn't fall the heck apart. I don't know, friends. I hope this video was not too annoying to those of you who are Austrian and American and don't like being made a little bit of fun of. If you liked it, if you can hit the like button, that helps me out. The subscribe button to this channel and the notifications button as well, I'd appreciate it. Also, I offer these videos for free. But if you want to help me succeed, because I'm an American and I love success, you can join my Patreon page. There is a link in the video description below, as well as just a PayPal link if you don't want to sign up for Patreon, but you want to help support this channel. You can buy me a coffee there. Thank you, and I'll see you next week, friends. Ciao, arrivederci, bok, tschüss.